Yeah, so the question is, what are the common misconceptions that people have about this conflict? I'd say one of those is just that there's a lot of pessimism about it, of course, and a lot of that is for obvious reasons, but people will say, they've been fighting for centuries, and this is always going to be this way, and Christians will often say, and it'll never be resolved until Jesus returns, and so this is just kind of the way it's meant to be. There's always going to be war and violence in the Middle East. And I would say that that's a misreading on both fronts. On the one hand, it's not always been this way. Yes, this is an area, a crossroads of civilization in which there has been a lot of conflict and a lot of war and a lot of battles over the centuries. A lot of empires have played themselves out here in this region, and so this isn't an area of a lot of conflict. But the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is more of a modern geopolitical conflict than it is an historic one. It has historic roots, and it's an historic part of the world, and people have long memories there, but it's a modern conflict. And as such, I think it does have solutions, and so that's one of the things that I think that one of the misconceptions people have. The other is the way in which people from a theological basis say, we just have to write this place off. That it's too broken, it's too messed up, and it's always going to be that way. And it was actually that's the way it was intended to be. And what I would argue is that the theology that was preached today in the sermon here is exactly the kind of theology that we ought to bring to bear as we think about engaging places like this. And that there is no place that, if we really believe that the kingdom of God is what Jesus taught it to be in the Sermon on the Mount and in the other things that he said, then we are agents of a kingdom. Those who follow him are agents of a kingdom of reconciliation, a kingdom of renewal and rebuilding in all the broken places, a kingdom of healing. And so there's no place that's so broken and so dark and so messed up that some measure of redemption can't be brought to bear, and that we don't have some obligation to be a part of that. All right? And that's a different way to think about a place like the Middle East, which really has suffered a lot of conflict and violence through the centuries, and there is a lot of darkness. Now, we have to keep in mind the fact that there are things that are broken that can never be fully repaired this side of the fulfillment of Jesus' kingdom. And that there are certain things that we can't fix, and we can't, so we should go into this understanding that we can't do everything, that we can't achieve the perfect shalom that God intended. But in creation, God created a world in which men and women were meant to live together with each other, in right relationship with each other and with God, and in a kingdom of justice and peace. That was the intention of God's creation, and that's ultimately what God intends to restore when, as we heard in the sermon today, that New Jerusalem ultimately comes down, and that reign of God is complete in the world, in which men and women live in right relationship with him and each other in a kingdom of justice and peace. And we are agents of that kind of kingdom until that kingdom comes. All right? And so I think that's one of the misconceptions you have to deal with, that which is broken and it's always going to be that way, and there's nothing that can happen there that's good. And in fact, we can't write off any place or any person as being beyond some kind of transformative change if that kind of redemptive work is brought into it.